Well, good day, everyone. The purpose of today's video is how to score your project. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see how I get into this project. I'm going to go into the OneDrive folder, to your job or jobs. So you may not have all the jobs that I have, but we'll just go to a job that will be a good example here. So I'm going to go into the jobs folder. In this case, it's Deer Valley 30. Open up the Foreman's folder and then the scoring folder, and you'll see a spreadsheet here, scoring. So we'll go ahead and open up that. And I like to, and this is entirely up to you, you can make modifications through the way it looks here, or you can open it up into the Excel file just by clicking this drop down and opening it up in your desktop app. For the sake of this video, I think we'll just leave this as is. So we're going to assume that it's the end of our shift for week ending 9/10. So remember, the week ending date is always a Sunday. So it's the end of my shift. We'll say today is the 8th of September. I've already filled out my weekly work plan, and there's a video that you can find on that information called How to Assess and Create a Weekly Work Plan, WWP. So I'm trying to determine what it is that I'm going to do next week for this particular job. So I know by looking at labor chart that I've got 5 folks out there on my project, including myself. So that gives me, if you notice, I'm up here in this planned hours to be used. So in my example, I'm going to say there's 5 of us. So that would be 200 hours planned. So if you recall from What is PAR, that's another video that you can look at to help you with this. They're all somewhat sequential, and you should probably start with what is PAR and then how to create, upload, and assess WWP. And now we're into how to score your job. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pre-scoring the job. And I've determined that I'm going to use 200 hours. That's what's on the labor chart schedule. 5 guys, 40 hours a week, 200 hours. So these tasks here, you'll notice they're already 100%, but I've determined that I'm going to finish up my site, trench, install, and branch wire pulls in building A. We're already scored on that at 95%, so I'm going to add 5% to that task. And if you could see what the calculation did, it said, okay, your planned earned hours currently are 11, but we've got 200 hours that we want to plan around. If that's all the work that we did, you'll recall from the What is PAR video, my hours worked divided by hours earned would give me a PAR score of 1905. So let's continue on. I'm going to determine that I want to finish the building B. That's this. That's this row right here. And I want to put in another 5% and finish that off. And I also want to do the same thing as long as I'm set up for wire pulls. I think I'll try to go ahead and get this accomplished. So that gives me currently a planned earned hours of 129, but you recall I'm working 200 hours. So I've got wire pull on my agenda for my weekly work plan. So I'm going to go ahead and increase this percentage from 90 to 100. This one from 95. I'm going to earn another 5% of those hours. And we'll go down through this. I'm also going to be doing some feeder terminations. And I'm going to say that I'm going to be able to finish that task. So I'm at 70. I'm going to earn another 24 hours for that task. So you can see our planned hours of earned hours are 177, but we're going to work 200 hours. So let's stretch a little bit because right now I'm at a 1.13. So let's see if there's, looking through my WBS, let's see if there's anything else that I can do this week that I'm reasonably certain I can get done. So let's go ahead and finish up installing. I don't think we'll get them all done, but I'm going to say building A, install wall packs, exits, and egress. So let's go ahead. We're already 60% done with that. Let's increase that to 20% more. So right now you can see that my work plan, I'm about 199 planned, and my hours worked are 200. That's very close. So maybe I could get a little bit more of this done and we could increase that percentage to 25%. That would give me 204 hours potentially earned, and I'm working 200 hours. So hours earned divided by hours worked gives me a par score of 0.98. So I'm doing this, like I said, I'm doing this on in the previous week when I filled out my weekly work plan. So I'm going to call this task pre-scoring. So we'll fast forward. Now it's the end of the week ending 9/17. So we're only working on this project Monday through Friday. So it's the Friday afternoon on the 15th. And I'm going to go ahead and assess how I did with each of these tasks. So this is my planned work. So did we get this task done? And when I say done, I mean DDFD. We no longer have to come back to that task. If the answer is yes, go ahead and add the additional 5 hours. So what you can see is that took those hours remaining and it took it to 0. So we'll assume that we got the building A's, branch wire trenching and conduit complete. Building B, we did the same thing. We said, but we got that done. So we're good there. So now you can see my score, my percentage complete, excuse me, is 100%. No single task can be more than 100%. So I couldn't assess my task. If you'll see this 30% number, I couldn't assess this task and say, well, I got 75% of that done. You see, it put me at 105% complete. That's impossible. The most you can be is 100%. So that's a correction that needs to be made. So in this case, I'm going to say, you know what? I didn't quite finish that task. I only got about 50% of that task done. If you'll notice, over here in the 30 hours remaining, if you determine that you don't need that much time, then by all means increase your percentage. So now I have 15 hours to do that task complete. Likewise, if I need more than 15 or more than 30, then I'll adjust my percentage complete and say it's 40%. That gives me 45 hours to finish that task. So for the sake of argument here, we'll just put in that we didn't quite finish that task. We didn't get 70% complete. We only got 50% complete, and that leaves me 30 hours left on this task. That's fine. We're not looking for par scores of 1. What we're looking for is the reality of where your job is. This is truly an assessment by you to say, where am I at with this project percentage-wise? So you can see we've earned so far 99 hours. So I'm going to say this particular task, install the building A MC cable. We were able to complete that work. So I'm going to take that to 100%. And we were able to complete building B's branch wire pulls and MC cable. So we had 50%. So in this particular, for instance, we didn't get anything done. We didn't get any of the wall packs complete. So I'm going to assess a 0 here. And we didn't get any of the building A feeders, terminations, and MOP. We didn't get any of that done. So you can see in our example, we're only earning 123 hours, but we had planned on working 200. Unfortunately, one of our guys wasn't able to show up. So instead of, we'll just say 2 of our folks didn't show up for the entire week. They were on vacation, they were sick, they were pulled off to another job. But the reality is, on this project, we only worked 120 hours. So that gave us a final par score for the week. This is the weekly par score of a 0.98. So let's just assume that everybody showed up, and we did in fact work 200 hours. So those 200 hours are actually going to go here, and you can see we earned 123, but we worked 200 hours, which gives us a weekly par score of a 1.63, and that's just math. 123 divided by 200 is 1.63. So in this particular week, it doesn't seem like it was very good news. So as a foreman and a manager of the project, and I'm the foreman, so I'm the full-time manager of this job, I can reflect on what could I do differently this next week to do better than a 1.63. And I'm assessing that on, like I made an example of, on the 15th, because this is week ending 9/17, what can I do better next week for next week's activities? And I think that's a discussion with perhaps you, your field operations manager, your project manager, and your crew. What could we do better to improve our productivity out here? We didn't get some tasks done that we thought were going to earn us the hours that we needed to. So in my example, I'm going to leave this as our weekly par score, and you can see what that did to our job to date par score, it was a 111. The week prior to, if you'll notice, our score was a 1.09. So obviously, this 1.63 score added to the overall job to date score, and now we're at a 1.11. So, you know, during the week, I think it's important that you're assessing your crew's productivity and seeking help from wherever you need to seek that help from, whether it's the field operations manager, conversations with your crew, constraints with the GCs. Uh, Perhaps you weren't able to install exits because the painter hadn't painted in this example. And that's what caused me to be unable to do that. On the contrary, if during the week you didn't get this particular task done, but you were able to, they did have building B painted, so we got about half of that done. So I'm going to put here, even though it wasn't planned, I was able to adjust on the fly, and we got 50% of that building done. You can see what it did. Our par score, hours earned, went from to a 178 hours earned, 200 worked. We had a par score of 1.13 for the week, and our job to date par score stayed the same. So just because you pre-scored this and said I was going to get these things done, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't adjust on the fly like we just did in my example. Building A wasn't ready for wall packs, exits, and egress fixtures like they had promised, but building B had been completed, and we got about 50% of that work done. Obviously, these percentages are subjective because we're not doing quantities. That would be considered production, and we're not looking for production numbers. An example of a production number was I had 10 items to do, I got 9 done, therefore I must be 90% done. No, this is a assessment of productivity. Remember, PAR stands for Productivity Assessment Rating. So we're looking for productivity here, not quantity, which would be production numbers. So they are a little subjective. And if you need help with that, obviously reach out to your field ops manager, your project manager, or phone a friend. There's lots of other foremans that are very good at doing PAR. What you don't want to do, and I think this is what I'm not trying to do, is say, well, let's see, let me go ahead and up that percentage because I don't want the office getting pissed off at me for scoring over a 1. So we'll just continue to increase these numbers until I get it to a 1. So in my example, I increased this to 70%. Don't do that. It's just, it's not an honest evaluation. If you're 50% done, then that's what you're done. If in fact you got it to 70%, that's great news. But it's not bad news either to say we only got 50% done. And in my example, in this cell here, I can see it's 55 hours, and I've determined that's exactly what I'm going to need, is around 55 hours to finish this task. So in my example, our weekly par score was a 1.13. I would much rather have an honest assessment of your par score as opposed to a fictitious number in percentage just to get you at a score of 1. That's not what we're looking for. So having said all that, I'm done with this assessment of my PAR. Like I said earlier, I'm going to do a reflection, PDCA, plan, do, check, adjust. What can I do next week to make my PAR score better? Remember, I had planned to do this, but for whatever reason, the jobs are dynamic and certainly change, sometimes on a daily or hourly basis, as you all know. So the reality of this week is this is what I've gotten done. I scored a 1.13, and we'll try to do better next week, right? The goal is continuous improvement. And, it's not the grand slam home run, it's the base hits that score runs. So I think you can all agree with that analogy, continuous improvement. So we'll go ahead and say that's where we're at. And I've scored a 1.13 for my period to date, right? That's the period week ending 9/17. And that's a 1.13. And my overall job to date PAR score is a 109. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And to save this, all I need to do is close out of it. And the information is saved. Now, if you recall, we go back into jobs and you'll see the PAR score and PPC folder. So that's another Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go into this score, and we did this for 9/17. So if you see this line here, Deer Valley 30, that's the job that we just worked on. My job to date PAR score for 9/17 is a 1.09. My period to date PAR score, that's this line, was a 1.13. And my PPC, plan percent complete, of my weekly work plan, which is in another video, we've determined that weekly work plan, we'll say it was 60% complete. So in this instance, you need to analyze, was my weekly work plan of 60% complete, planned percent complete, was that relative to the 1.13? And I would say it probably is. So something on your weekly work plan caused you to have a PPC of 60%. Perhaps if that 60% would have been 90%, we could have done better on our period to date PAR score. So I hope this video helps. I've showed you how to pre-score, how to make your final assessment and your scoring. What we want is truth, not fictitious numbers, because this is an offer for you to help manage your job, and it's also transparency so that the entire team, the entire organization can see how are we doing on this project, because obviously the goal is we're trying to make more on these projects than just wages. Genco pays out extremely generous bonuses at the end of these projects that score less than a 1. So that's the goal, is to put more than just wages in your pocket. We want to help you to make a bonus, and what can we do along the way? And like I said, it's not about big grand slams. It's about continuous improvement, reflection, PDCA, and involving as many people as you can. Field ops, project managers, other foremen. So this isn't a struggle that you're in all by yourself, and you're certainly not going to be. Uh, I would rather have an honest assessment through the duration of the project as opposed to fictitious numbers that are going to come out in the wash anyway. You can only score a 1 until you're out of hours. So anyway, I hope this video helped. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. And thank you very much for watching. And I hope you all got some things maybe that you didn't know or some help. So thank you again.